What's up, my fellow Blues? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and we are here to talk about Chelsea because the preseason is wrapped up. We're going into the first weekend of the Premier League, which is very exciting, and I actually have some stuff to talk about because I've not had a chance to talk about any of the preseason matches. I have watched most of them all the way through. Some of them I just sort of skimmed if they were a little bit more boring, but do have a lot to get through. First and foremost, the first thing to talk about that I didn't actually get a chance to do a video about previously is, of course, the new manager coming in. Mauricio Pochettino, not a bad option. I thought he did pretty well with what he had at Tottenham. Of course, we know how Tottenham does not like to really spend, so, of course, that was short-lived, but they did have a pretty successful run at things when he was in charge. And then, of course, going to PSG. Of course, PSG most of the time find success in Ligue 1, but the one thing he could not do for them that they still cannot do is, of course, win the Champions League. So, and I think that's more so just based on PSG, the club, where they are. The French league is not the toughest, so they don't have a whole lot of competition to get them ready to face these tougher teams. So, kind of that, it's a weird feeling, but it's a lot of teams dealing with that sort of feeling of, if you don't have the competition to push you, you're not really going to be ready whenever you do face this different competition. It's honestly why the Chelsea women, I think, struggle so much in the Champions League side of things, because honestly in England they have, two or three teams that they have to worry about. Everybody else is just easy picking. So obviously I don't know how all the other leagues are, but it feels like once they face those tougher tests in Barcelona, Lyon, Wolfsburg, I think, is another tough opposition. I just don't think they're quite ready for those games, because most of the season they're playing against teams that they're easily crushing 6-7 nothing sometimes. So, but yeah, coming from PSG though, I'm pretty sure that's Pochettino's last job. In my opinion, he's a good appointment. I think he's a good manager. I think he is ready for a club like Chelsea because he's already managed two pretty higher level clubs. So it's definitely not a Potter situation where he's taking a step up. Some people might even consider it a step down from PSG. So yeah, I like this appointment. I feel like he's got a good motivation style. So far his tactics have looked a bit more exciting, a bit more aggressive than Potter's or Lampard's were last season. So as a team, I feel like we've looked a lot more energetic, and it feels like there's a much better feeling. I do think some of that is also because we brought in some new players who are looking to impress. So, but yeah, Pochettino, good choice. Excited to see what he's going to do this season. Hopefully, even if we're not challenging for the title, at least we got to be challenging for the Champions League this year, because that's where we should have been last year under Potter. Because I know it's going to be a process, and Bully has obviously shown he's willing to spend money. So I hope that this is going to be a good kind of union between Pochettino and the club, and Bully gives him the backing that he needs to get us back to where we should be, fighting for the title and fighting on multiple fronts as well, in Europe, in England, all of that. But yeah, going into the preseason, though, and all of the games, so we had a few Premier League Summer Series games, which were pretty fun. We started off with Wrexham as well, which, that's just kind of that's one of those games you face those lower level teams, just sort of get things going, get things started, get to play some youngsters as well. And for the most part, you expect to win those games. It'd be really embarrassing if a Premier League team weren't able to beat Wrexham, Yeah, I know, man, you played a lot of their youngsters. It's still funny to laugh at them for losing. And then we finish it off with a pretty fun game against Dortmund as well. So, faced a lot of teams that I feel like are good tests for us, good chance to see some of these new players and what they're capable of. And on top of that, I got to see one of those games live, because Chelsea did come to Atlanta for the first time that I can think of, that I'm aware of, and got to play Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. The game ended up being a draw against Newcastle, but it was still just exciting to get to watch Chelsea live in my kind of hometown. I don't live in Atlanta, but not having to drive like 5 or 6 hours to see them play like I've always had to in the past. It's a good feeling, and honestly, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, it is such a good stadium to be a part of. It's why, honestly, I've been so disappointed with Atlanta United in the past few seasons, because I want to go to the stadium and I want to enjoy myself there because it is such a good atmosphere and the stadium is fun to be in and it's wonderful to see. But the performances from Atlanta United have not really measured up to the quality of the stadium and the quality of the fans showing up. So to see a couple Premier League teams show up here and really go at it and have this exciting, intense flowing game going on. It was a good time, and I had a lot of fun. I was a little disappointed because Silva is probably my favorite player at the club right now, and he didn't play at all in Atlanta. So he was definitely a player I wanted to see live, and I didn't get to see live. So a little sad there. But other than that, as far as players who impressed and didn't impress, obviously there's a lot of players to talk about because a lot of different players showed up. Um, so starting from the back, keeper wise, obviously we've got Kepa, who's still here and still feels like Pochettino wants to give him a chance. I know we just picked up Robert Sanchez or Roberto Sanchez. Is it Robert or Roberto? I don't remember now. But I mean, not a bad pickup, and honestly, somebody that can challenge Kepa for the starting spot. I just don't look at either of those guys and see world class. I don't look at them and think about these game-saving saves that they make, like De Gea used to do for Man U or Alisson does for Liverpool. There's just that certain level where you've got your keepers that'll make the saves they're supposed to, which Kepa does. A lot of the shot stopping he's capable of is very impressive, but it's got to be within his reach because anything out of his reach, most of the time, he's not going to get to. So can Sanchez come in and challenge him for that? I don't know, but we'll see. But yeah, we got to see him. Slanina got a game in. Bergstrom and one other one. Coming. Yes. Coming. Which Coming, I think, is the more... I think he's been involved before. Bergstrom, I think, is a bit younger. He's super tall, though. If he can become a really good shot stopper and a really solid keeper, I mean, he would be great to have because he's like 6'7" or something like that. He's extremely tall. But yeah, as far as all the keepers are concerned, obviously Kepa, he did okay, but he still had his moments where he's watching as things go past him. He's not really moving his feet at all, so that's still a part of his game, and as long as it is, I'm just not going to trust him in goal. And everybody else, I mean, all the kids did okay, the young keepers, but just nothing that really convinced me that they're gonna be ready for this season. So it's good to get another keeper in that's going to be challenging Kepa, and hopefully, if Kepa doesn't improve, hopefully taking the spot from him. So in the back, starting on the right side, mostly it's James and Gusto. James started okay so far. Obviously, he's had a bit of a rough time of things with his injuries over the past couple seasons, but I've just been a little disappointed with how his work ethic has dropped off. I thought he started preseason pretty well, though. He looks to be working a bit harder. He looks to be pushing himself. I know he's talked about vying for that captain spot, so I hope that that's enough of a motivator for him to really push himself this season and not just kind of walk around and wait for the game to come to him. I want him to go searching and find the game. Gusto, decent looking so far. I mean, he's not really giving me anything that's convincing me he's going to challenge James for the starting right back spot, but he's showing enough to make me think, okay, so we have a decent backup option for James. If James gets hurt, if James is unavailable for whatever reason, or if you just want to rest him, I think Gusto is good enough to fill that spot for the time being. So on the left side, we've got Chilwell still, Cucurella still, and Hall, I think, is still an option over there. Chilwell looks okay. First couple games he got to a bit of a slow start, but I thought by the end of preseason he looks a lot more fit, a lot more in shape, and a lot more what we expect from him on the left side. Kind of that up and down, just taking on players and all the fun stuff that we expect to see. Cucurella is still just defensively weak, doesn't track runners very well. Too many mistakes from him. Don't know why we kept him. Don't know why we bought him for $50 million. But I'm assuming that's why we haven't sold him, because we don't want to take a loss on him. And unfortunately, we are going to take a loss on him because he's definitely not worth what we spent for him at all. And Hall, I mean, I still really like Hall. I think he is he's a little slow at times, but I think his confidence on the ball and his ability on the ball, I think it just tops Cucurella for me. Where Cucurella he's quick and he's getting up and down the line a lot. He just makes too many mistakes. Hall doesn't really make those mistakes. He just sometimes he'll get beat for pace or he's not quite aware because he's still young and learning. But I think he's a much better player than Cucurella is, and I'd love to see him out there more often because I do think he has the capability of becoming one of our best players if we just give him time to grow. So, in the back, no Fofana, no Badiashile right now. I think they're both out through injury, so I think Fofana's out for a while. So another player that we brought in for a crap ton of money, and we're just not going to be able to use him because whether it's our physios, whether we're just not doing our homework and checking if these players have injury issues, I don't know, but it's starting to piss me off because Nkuku also just got injured, and I'm reading a bunch of people saying, oh yeah, he has these injury problems. I'm like, why are we buying these players then? But the main back line that we were seeing was Chalobah was involved, Humphreys was involved, Colwill played a couple times, Silva played a couple times, and then one more. His name will come to me eventually, hopefully. I want to say it starts with the C. But he only played he played a little bit in 2 of the matches, I'm pretty sure. So not really a player that I expect to see. But as far as the players we did see, I thought Chalobah looks okay. Maybe still lacking that bit of vision. There are a couple times where he's getting turned a little too easily or he's not aware of what's coming behind him. So still needs to pick that up. But as far as his energy, his strength, his pace, looking very ready for this season. Colwill is one that a lot of people are excited for because he had a great season at Brighton last year. And yeah, I mean, from preseason, he looks solid. I don't think he is the finished product yet, but I think he's definitely got a lot of potential. And I think if you pair him with Silva back there, hopefully he will learn from Silva and kind of build his game a little bit more because he definitely looks physically capable, but just like Chalobah, it's the awareness of what's going on around him that looked like sometimes he was a little bit slow to pick up on what's happening. But so far from what I've seen from him in preseason, it's promising, and I hope he can grow into this season and really become a starter for us. Humphreys, he's young, looks energetic, looks like he is got potential to grow into a player, but it definitely doesn't seem like he's ready for this season. He looks like he would be a good option maybe if you need somebody. If you're lacking numbers, he would be a good option for you to come off the bench or maybe just bring him in a game where you need to shut up shop a little bit. Bring him in, drop him into more of a back 3. I think that might be a good possibility for him as well. But I don't think he's on the same level as either Colwill or Chalobah, and definitely not close to Silva. Silva, he still looks very capable. Physically is probably the only area that I'm worried about for him for this season, just because he is 38 going on 39. So clearly that's going to be the only area where I'm even concerned that he might drop off this season. But his awareness of everything going on and his ability to read the game and put himself in the right position, it's still spot on. And honestly, it has to be, because if not, then he's not going to have the pace to catch up. In the midfield, that's where we still, I'm not sure about yet. I know we just picked up somebody from Rennes, I believe. So hopefully he can fill up that more defensive midfield spot, because we really don't have that right now. Everybody that played in there this preseason are mostly either your box-to-box, energetic, Kovacic, Gallagher, Mount, those type of players. They're not your defensive midfielders. They're get on the ball, make something happen. Or you've got your distributors, Santos, Fernandez. Yeah, those are the two that are really I would say the more distributing type. Cassidy, I don't know how to pronounce it. He is kind of also a box-to-box. He almost reminds me of Loftus-Cheek a little bit, because he's tall, he's strong, he's quick with his touch, but he just lacks the vision to find that final pass whenever he gets into the final third. So, but I think he's already being talked about loaned out somewhere, or maybe already has been loaned out. But I mean, he's just a young player that looks like he might have potential, but he needs to grow a little bit more. Um, Gallagher, I thought looked okay. Started off a little rough, but I feel like he grew into the team a little bit more, and it definitely seems like Pochettino trusts him in the midfield to be that sort of the energetic, pacey, just run around and cause problems in there. Anytime somebody has possession in there, Gallagher's going to be on him and trying to poke the ball away. So he's good for that, but again, he's not a defensive midfielder. Fernandez, I think, looks okay. I still want to see a little bit more from him. I feel like he's in between right now for me, Jorginho and Fabregas. Like he's somewhere in the middle of those two. He's not quite as slow, not quite as bad with his passing as Jorginho was, but he's definitely not on that level of intelligence and finding the right passes Fabregas was yet. So hopefully we'll see him grow as the season goes on, and he can start to find those passes a lot more. Santos looks like a good backup option for Fernandez. He's still a little bit younger. He's quicker, I think, with the ball than Fernandez is, but he's not quite as quick with his passes is the problem. So they both did okay. Honestly, our whole midfield did okay this preseason, but it was probably the weakest part of the field for us, in my opinion. So they got to grow into it. They got to, again, hopefully this guy that we brought in from Rennes, I don't know if he's more of a defensive-minded midfielder or if he's going to be similar to Gallagher, kind of the box-to-box. But we do need that kind of big body, strong, Matic, Rice, that type of player in there. So that's what I'm hoping we're getting with whatever his name, Ugo Chukwa, I think. Could be wrong about that. We'll see. Up into the front, though, obviously this is where we have so many players to talk about because it kind of interchanged a lot throughout the preseason. Start with the most disappointing, and that is Sterling. He had a decent match against Dortmund, but that's the closest he came to looking good this preseason. He looks not ready at all. He looks the same as last season, slow, doesn't want to get involved, not moving off the ball. He's waiting for the game to come to him. Whenever he does get the ball, he makes poor decisions with it. It's just not good enough. And I know they're going to try because, again, like Cucurella, brought him in for a good bit of money, so you want him to succeed, but he's just not getting the job done. And I'd rather see other players in over him right now. So, yeah, it would be nice if Pochettino could bring the best out of him, but I don't see that happening personally. I think I don't know, I think he needs to be in a certain team, a certain style of team, and I don't think we play that style. I think he fits better into your Liverpools that look to counter or your Guardiola teams that look to get the ball wide and let them break in quickly. We seem to be more of a team that likes to build through the middle, get it out wide, get it back in, and then go to goal. And I just don't think he does that very well. He'd rather drive down the side and try to cut in deep, and we don't do that very often, at least not normally. And we did it a few times in preseason, but it doesn't seem to be how Pochettino wants us to play. He'd rather us knock the ball around, be creative around the top of the box, and try to find something, get a shot off or find something to slip in. So, other players that were up there, some of the youngsters, Angelo, I know he just got loaned out today. He looks okay. I think he got a lot of praise because he started his career very young for Santos. And honestly, I mean, he looks fine, but nothing really super impressive about him to me. Obviously, he's 18, so he's got time to grow. But yeah, I don't know. I was seeing articles about, watch his highlights against Wrexham, and honestly, I didn't really see anything that was mind-blowing about his game. He's just decent little player, hard worker, wants to get on the ball and makes things happen. So I like that about him. But I just don't see him having the strength or the quickness to really be effective in the Premier League right now. So that's one place I feel like he's going to have to grow. Maatsen is the one that I feel like a lot of people were surprised just because, he played well at Burnley last season for one, I understand. Obviously, I didn't watch the games. But he's a player that has kind of been on the periphery. He's been one of those young players that's been talked about, but he's not really quite broken in like some of the youngsters have. But Pochettino seems to like him, and I feel like there's elements of his game that fits what Pochettino is trying to do. He's very quick about cutting in and finding a pass in behind or trying to get the switch on quickly. And he's a hard worker as well. The one issue that he's going to have, similar to Angelo, is I just don't know if he's going to have the strength to really cut it in the Premier League. Now, maybe he'll get stronger, maybe he'll grow the more he plays, but yeah, that's something that's going to probably be a hindrance if he does play at the beginning of the season. But I do think he's a good option to have coming off the bench because he does have that pace and energy to really cause some problems back there. And he's a willing runner, too. So definitely a player that I hope does get the chance to break in this season and see what he can do with his chances. Mudryk, I feel like is going to have hopefully a bit of a breakout season. Just based on what I saw in preseason, he looks like he's ready to really push himself this year. And I think Pochettino wants him to be a bit more of a fire starter up front. Potter, I just don't think Potter really knew how to utilize him, but it seems like Pochettino really wants him to kind of get that ball, run down the lines, and find something in the middle. And really cause some issues for that back line, use his pace, and really release himself to just be a danger, be that player that gets in behind and really causes the defense to have something to worry about, because you can't really sit high if Mudryk's on the field because he's going to run in behind you, and most players are not going to catch him if he gets in behind. So he's going to have that element to his game that's going to allow us to look long occasionally, but he's also got the pace on the ball that if you get it to him and he can get in behind that right defender, he's going to have the ability to drive down the line and really cause some issues. So I think he's probably going to be one of our standout players this season. Could be wrong about that, but just from what I'm seeing from him, if he can keep this this performance consistently throughout the year, I think he will really be effective for us. So fingers crossed on that. I don't want to jinx him, but I'm liking what I'm seeing so far, so I hope to see more. And Cuckoo obviously just got hurt for 4 months because, again, we apparently don't do any research on these players to find out if they have injury problems or not. But, I mean, I like what I saw from him so far. He's not really pushing himself in my eyes. I mean, he's playing well and he's working hard, but it definitely seems like he has another level he can reach if he just really works a little bit harder. I'm not saying, because I had my issues with James on that before, but James really, it felt like he wasn't working hardly at all, except whenever the ball came to him. And Cuckoo does work. It just feels like there are times where he's on the ball and you think, okay, he can beat this guy with pace or he can find that pass, but it's almost like he doesn't really know what to do when he gets in the final third, which, I mean, to be fair, would be the second player that we brought in from Red Bulls that had that issue. But he's definitely got the ability to get the job done up top. I'm not really sure if that's going to be a consistent thing for him. It feels like a couple of the games he was looking good, and then a couple of the games he was kind of fading out. We weren't really seeing much from him. So, I don't know. Obviously, he will be set back now with this injury, so coming back into the team after that, I don't know if he's going to be at a hindrance when he comes back or if he's going to come back fully fit and ready to go. We'll see. But the definitely standout performer of preseason, and the one I think a lot of people are probably excited to see more of, is Jackson. Because, yeah, he looks ready. He looks ready to play. He looks ready to fight. He's aggressive. He's fast. He wants to put pressure on the defense. He's tall, so he can win the ball in the air. He is, I would say, a slightly more aggressive version of Tammy Abraham. And I like what I'm seeing from him. And I even saw he got the number 15, so I'm like, are we going to have another Drogba situation? Because, yeah, he looks ready. And a lot of the matches that when he came in, you could sense that there was something just happening up top. Like everything started to click a little bit more. We started to find a little bit more possession up front. And the games where we started, I felt like we started well and he looked effective. So we'll see if that translates to league play, but definitely for preseason, he was my pick of the bunch as far as players who performed well. And he got me excited to see more because we haven't really had a striker who's been effective over the last few years. So Jackson, for me, looks like he could finally, hopefully, break that curse for us and give us somebody to really get excited for up front. Because honestly, I mean, Giroud was pretty good for us, but he was definitely on the tail end of his career, so he wasn't doing it consistently. But the last striker we've had that has done the job well and consistently has been Costa, and that's been quite a few years now. So, yeah, I would love to see him really break in and start scoring us some goals, start being effective up front, and really help us be more exciting in the final third. Outside of that, I think that's about it. I feel like there's probably somebody I'm forgetting that's going to upset me later whenever I realize I forgot them. But obviously there have been a few like Hudson-Odoi, like Lukaku, Ziyech, that haven't featured at all. And I'm kind of hoping they're on their way out, to be fair. So Broya is coming back from his injury, so now that Nkunku is out, Broya has a chance as well to break into the first team, and I'd like to see what he's capable of, because at Southampton he looked very effective, he looked exciting, he looked like he had a good sense about him in the box. Again, he reminded me of a young version of Giroud, so if he can come into the team, if Pochettino can get him ready for the season and really help him grow as a striker, he'd be another option up front that I'd be excited about. So, just trying to buy time to think if I can remember anybody else that played. I'm going to go ahead and just pull up the Chelsea app while I'm buying this time, just so I can remember who played. But overall, I would say definitely the preseason got me excited for the season. And I think that's something that last season did not do. You know, the preseason with Potter, it looked ugly, it looked disjointed, it looked like he didn't really have a sense of what was going on. Again, driving down to Miami, I think, or Orlando. Pretty sure we drove down to Miami to watch them lose 4-0 against Arsenal. I mean, it was an ugly match. It was not at all what I wanted to see out of the team. You know, out of a preparing for the season type of game. It felt much more like we're kind of getting ready. We're not quite there yet. Okay, I remembered three more that I forgot. Chukwuemeka, obviously he featured a little bit last season, and problem for him was last year was so bad that he wasn't necessarily fantastic, but he was exciting, he was different, he was working hard, and so that made him look better. This year, with how good the team looks, with how energetic everybody looks, he's kind of fading a bit more into average territory. He looks okay, but he doesn't quite look what we expected from him after last season. And again, I think a lot of that is just down to the quality was so bad last year that he looks better in comparison. So he's definitely going to have to step up if he wants to feature much this year, because the team, he's here, the team was here, now the team's looking more here, but he's still where he was last year. At least that's what I'm assuming is happening. Diego Moreira is another one. He's only featured a couple times. I don't really know what to expect from him. I don't know much about him, to be fair, but yeah, I didn't get to see really enough of him to know, is he going to be playing much at all, or is he just a young player that we signed that hopefully will grow into the team in the next couple of years? And honestly, there are a couple others like that. Angelo's a good example. That some of the guys we signed that didn't get a chance to play in preseason, I don't know what their story is. Burstow, though, is the other one that I forgot about, and he did get himself a goal, but yeah, watched him play. He's one of those young players that he's featured for the youth team a little while, and he looks pretty good at the youth level, but I don't think he's going to be ready for senior level team anytime soon. I don't mean to be harsh or anything, but yeah, he got himself a decent goal, but I don't think he's quite at that level yet. He might do okay, but I'd see him much more as an option for like an FA Cup match or one of the early League Cup matches. He's definitely not. I don't think he's going to get any Premier League time unless he just magically gets so much bigger and better in a short amount of time. So, but who knows? We'll see. That's what I like about preseason, though. It's it's a good chance to see what we've got available, see what options we have in our youth program coming off the bench. You get a chance to see all of these players and really what they're capable of early on, and they got a chance to prove themselves to the new manager as well. So, but yeah, like I was saying, this preseason was much better than last year. It's got me much more excited for this season and what Pochettino is going to do and what we're going to do as a club. And I've been pretty harsh on Boley. I'm still not totally convinced on him yet, just because it does feel like there's a lot of buying and selling going on. And while that can work sometimes, we've seen with teams like Southampton, if you're just going to buy and sell all the time, eventually it's going to catch up to you. At some point you have to have some consistency. You have to have some players that are there for the long haul. And it does feel like he is buying players for the long haul. He is setting up these contracts that are 6 or 7 years long. So clearly these are not players that he's bringing in to build up and then sell. But at the same time, it does feel like he's very willing to, all right, well, he's done, get him out of here, bring him in, and he's done, get him out of here, bring him in. And we don't necessarily want that at the player level. Obviously, he looks like he wants to try to stick with managers longer, so much so to the point where Potter should have been gone 3 or 4 times before he was sacked last year. But I feel like with Pochettino coming in, he's not one of the older ones. He's also not one of the younger ones. He's a good middle ground where he can be here for several years, and we're bringing in players that looks like Pochettino can grow for several years, but there's also potential to bring in some other players to fill in the gaps over the next couple of years and really get us back up to the top. So yeah, I'm excited. It's something that I've not felt about this team in at least a year. So yeah, I don't know. I look forward to seeing what we're gonna see. So, I'm going to go ahead and put this here now, because I'm pretty sure I said Potter was the one that was having issues. It was Tuchel at the beginning of last year that was having issues in preseason, but it still just didn't look good, and it did not get me excited for the season. So my point still stands. I forgot that we had switched out Tuchel for Potter early on last year. So anyways, that's it for me. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on the preseason? What are your thoughts for the upcoming season? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Chelsea reviews, and I'll see you guys when the season starts this weekend. Peace out.